Live on Facebook.
Great. So why don't we go ahead and get started? I want to welcome everyone who is participating today via Zoom and also via Facebook Live. Really appreciate you being here. We're going to start off with a quick round of introductions, and then I'll say a few words, then we're going to hand it over to CalTrans to learn a little bit more about the project as it moves forward. So I would love to start by introducing my fabulous team. Elise, do you want to introduce yourself and your partner in arms over there at the county complex?
Hi, Elise Weiland, field representative on D5 team. And over here we have Mary Agneberg, who recently joined our team as the MAC clerk. And that's who we have at the county complex.
Wonderful. And also joining us from the county family, one of my favorite department heads, because he does so much work out in West County. Johannes, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is, thank you, Supervisor Hopkins. My name is Johannes Huberts, and I'm the Director of Transportation and Public Works for Sonoma County.
Thank you so much. And then I'd like to introduce a representative from Senator Mcguire's office. Senator Mcguire has been a champion of this project, really committed to the community engagement piece in particular and to hearing from the community. He was unable to join us this evening due to last minute notice, but I do want to hand it over to Sophia Schwartzky from his office to say a few words.
Hello, and thank you, Supervisor. It's great to meet you all, and thank you for having me on the panel this evening. I'm looking forward to learning more about this project and hearing what the downtown community has to say. Senator Mcguire really wishes he could have been on tonight, but I will be taking some detailed notes, which will be shared directly with the Senator and his district staff. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jeff from the CalTrans team to introduce all of the folks who are working on this critical project. Jeff?
Great, thank you, Supervisor Hopkins, and also thank you for having this meeting along with Senator Mcguire's office. This gives us a chance to roll out the project before it's finished and let people take a look at it, kick the tires, give their opinions, and so we see this as a good opportunity. So my name is Jeff Weiss. I'm the Public Information Officer on the project. Sort of a lofty title, like I should be wearing a badge and a hat, but I'm the information officer. And Ahmad Rahimi is the project manager. And we're also joined by the project designer, Stuart Lee, and the head of permits, is that right? Amjad Nasir, and he's in charge of all permits in Sonoma County and some other counties as well. He's a busy guy. So that's our team.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thanks for all of you for being here this evening. Last but not least, I would like to sort of introduce the man behind the mask who makes all of our town hall meetings work. Jason, do you just want to say a quick hi to everybody?
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Jason. I'm really excited to hear from the community what they really want to see and what potential elements can be added to this project as it moves forward. In addition to listening to the community, I did want to share a positive announcement, which is that we are really going to be investing in downtown Guerneville in the years to come. And so not only is this CalTrans project moving through the state and under the leadership of Senator Mcguire, but we have also actually targeted downtown Guerneville for our pavement preservation program funds. So in partnership with Johannes, he was able to map out how much it would cost to repave all of the roads in downtown, aside from 116, which we're not responsible for. And that was actually approved by the Board of Supervisors earlier this year. So in the years to come, we're going to see some really big changes to downtown Guerneville that I think will benefit the entire community and show a real commitment to investing in this community. So I'm super excited to collaborate with CalTrans on this project. I'm also super excited to have that moving forward in parallel. So it's not just one road that's getting fixed, that we're actually looking at sort of off the main drag as well. So Johannes, unless you have anything to add on that, anything to add about that one?
I don't, Supervisor Hopkins.
Thank you so much for all of your work on that and costing and getting the estimates and getting it worked into our budget. I really appreciate that. Sure. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Jeff to go ahead and provide a presentation on what's going to be moving forward. And then after that, we'll entertain question and answer. Oh, and actually, I want everyone to know, if you would like to ask any questions of our fantastic CalTrans partners, please go ahead and use the Q&A function. So you can use that Q&A function to go ahead and input questions, and then we can answer them at the end of their presentation. If you're watching via Facebook Live, you can just put your questions into the comments and we'll read them aloud. Then after the Q&A session, with CalTrans, then we're going to just actually open up an opportunity for public comment. So depending on the number of attendees, we'll keep an eye on it. It'll have either a couple minutes or 3 minutes to just share what you would like to see out of this project and what your top concerns and top desires are for downtown Guerneville. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to say what big news that is that you're planning on paving this area. We're taking care of the sidewalks and putting in facilities for pedestrians, but to add that to the project, whenever it happens, is enormous. What I have to share is my part is the communications aspect, and I'm here to tell the community that the project you're going to hear about is also going to be talked about before it happens. My job is to get out there before we break ground, well before, and tell everyone what's happening, hopefully when it's happening, how we're going to mitigate things, any noise they might hear. And we're going to do that a couple of ways. We're going to have a project website, and we're going to have me available by email. And we're also going to send out a mailer to everyone in the Guerneville community, telling them when the project is starting. So they'll have a good idea about what's going to be happening and perhaps when it's going to be happening, so they can make plans. And also, another aspect of the project is that we're going to, we're going to have a public meeting. This is a public meeting, but we're going to have a large public meeting sometime in the spring to talk about the project. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to talk to people in the business community and get their ideas about what they would like to see in the project. And it's like going into a car shop where you come in and you're like, I thought I wanted a red car, but now that I see it, maybe a green car is better. There's some definite aesthetic parts that we're looking forward to getting input on. And we're also getting input on how this is going to affect the community. And I think it's a real upgrade to the sidewalks and to the pedestrians. It's a very pedestrian type town. And I think by adding these curb ramps, these pedestrian signals to let people cross at a place where there wasn't a red light before, all this stuff is going to improve the walking around Guerneville. And it's very much a walking town. So I would like to send the second part off, and Ahmad, I've already introduced him, but he'll give a quick presentation, an overview of the project, and then Stuart will give some details, and Ahmad will talk about some of the issues that are happening today. So Ahmad, you're up now. It's your turn to take over.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Supervisor Hopkins, and all of our partners in the county, and Senator Mcguire's representative there. Really appreciate the time you've given us, and also all of those who are in attendance today who are watching us. So I'm Ahmad Rahimi. I'm the project manager and also the regional project manager for Sonoma. So Jason, I was wondering, do you have my presentation that you're able to share with the full-blown screen?
I do, and I will launch that right now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So this project is okay. Yeah, great. Thank you, Jason. So of course, this project is a pedestrian improvement project in Guerneville. And let's go over to the second slide. Thank you. As you all know, where this project is located on State Route 116, sort of east of the Highway 1. And next slide, please. And the limits of the project basically is between Old River Road and Brookside Lane over in Guerneville. Next slide. I didn't want to spend too much time on everything that folks might know about. So the project purpose is to upgrade the pedestrian facilities in Guerneville area to comply with the current ADA standards. The existing pedestrian facilities lack some important aspects and features, and they make it difficult for persons with disability to access everything in that area, in the project limits. And also some of the sidewalks have excessive cross slopes, make it difficult for the wheelchairs. And some areas lack the adequate width, which is 50 inches per ADA standards to make it through all the little obstacles here and there. Those include either narrow sidewalk or a light post in the middle of the sidewalk. And also we do have curb ramps that are very steep. Very steep, excuse me. They're too steep for wheelchairs, and they don't have the detectable warning features that would allow the blind to be able to detect those surfaces properly. And other than that, we also need some pedestrian crossing improvements in town. So we're going to be working on those too as a part of this project. Next slide, please. So this is a brief list of project components. I mean, the numbers could vary, and in most cases, we are able to do all of those items that we got listed here. And sometimes you do have to eliminate them or may add to another location as necessary, depending on some of the restrictions or problems we may run into in the field, or as we do the complete final design of the work. So we're going to be upgrading, and mostly it's going to be all new curb ramps at 18 locations. We're going to have 3,200 square foot, linear foot of existing sidewalks to work on. And we're going to be doing some widening of the existing sidewalks. There's not too much of it, only 70 square feet. These are all estimates again. And we're going to install pedestrian signal push buttons at 14 locations and modify driveways at the tune of 700 linear feet and install new detectable warning surfaces, about 330 square feet of that. And then also remove some obstructions at 2 specific locations and install pedestrian hybrid beacons at 2 locations also, which will be used for crossing the streets, basically. And besides that, we're talking to the county about replacing some of the existing light posts in town and some other improvements. So we're going to be working with the county on those items later on as we move through the development of the project. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, Jason. Thank you. So this project, it costs, the construction cost is currently estimated at about $5.6 to $5.7 million. And the construction is expected to begin around end of 2022, maybe beginning of 2023 to the end of 2023. So we have about a whole year of work to be in town there. If you could go to the next slide, Jason, please. Thank you so much. So the rest of the presentation, we're going to have our designer, Stuart Lee, from our district design office to go over some of the more details of the project. And we also have Amjad Nasir from our permits office. He's in charge of the district permits, encroachment permits. And he will be going over some of the issues we've had and was brought up to our attention, besides what we knew about the ADA compliance in town And so we just wanted to share that concern with everyone who is present and ask for compliance and cooperation. And after Mr. Nasir is done, we will go over any questions you may have. So with that, Jason, if you don't mind going to the next slide, I would like to introduce Stuart Lee. He's our designer.
Yeah, thank you, Ahmad. Good evening, everyone. Jason, may I request that I share my screen with everyone because I made some changes to the slides.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Is everyone able to see my screen here? Is everyone able
Yes,
to see my
Stuart.
screen?
Yes,
I
we
can
can
see it.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, this screen here shows a graphic representation of our project. It's basically, as Ahmad mentioned, it's from Brookside Lane on the west side to Old River Road on the east side. Again, this is a graphical representation of our proposed improvement. This slide here shows the more like a blow up picture of Mill Street and Church Street. At these two locations, we're proposing bulb outs crossing Route 116 at those two intersections, as well as a pedestrian hybrid beacon system. We'll go over those in further details later. So I'm going to touch on a few of the improvements that we're proposing on this project. As Ahmad Rahimi mentioned, the project manager mentioned that we're proposing improvements in the curb ramps to meet our American with Disabilities Act standards, improvement on the sidewalks to provide 4 feet 2 inches minimum clear width and 5%
Stuart, I hate to
slope.
interrupt, but I'm
Yes.
wondering if maybe you can expand the view. We did just receive feedback that it's difficult to see in this view. So is it possible to enter the full screen version for
Okay.
this?
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry.
No worries, thanks.
I think maybe you go to slideshow. There you go.
Slideshow from beginning. Screen.
We could also ask Jason to go to his slideshow. He may be able to maneuver better. It's up to you, Stuart.
Doing the best I can. It's the beginning. Is this better?
Yes, that's
Yes.
much better. Thank you so much.
Great. Sorry about that. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this is a project layout. There's a graphic representation of our project from Brookside Lane on the west end to Old River Road on the east end. Next slide, it shows the more of a bigger scale, I guess, if you will, of Mill Street and Church Street. At these two intersections, we're proposing bulb outs in order for, I guess, to provide shorter distance for pedestrians to cross Route 116 at Mill Street as well as Church Street. We're also proposing to put pedestrian hybrid beacon system at these two intersections. We'll go over those in further details later on during my presentation. Again, as Ahmad Rahimi mentioned, project manager mentioned, we're making improvements to the curb ramps in order to meet the American with Disabilities Act standards. Sidewalks to provide 4 feet 2 inches minimum clear width as well as 1.2% cross slope. And driveways to make sure there's a ramp as well as the 4 feet 2 minimum clear width for the pedestrians to cross to walk along as well. and also with 1.5% cross slope. And also at pedestrian crossings, we're proposing, as we touched on earlier, bulb outs, as well as pedestrian hybrid beacon system. Here's an example of one location where I believe there's at Mill Street at one of the corner that's existing right now. At this, as you can see, there's lack of detectable warning surface for the visually impaired people. And this program is not standard, is not to standards right now. So next picture, I'll show you what a standard program will look like. This is a sample picture from another project that has what we call standard programs, as a detectable warning surface, as well as the flares, as well as the 1.5% cross slopes, as well as and basically the cross slope that meet current standards. That's what it's striving to provide here at this project here, standard programs. Next is this is at one location, the sidewalk where the as you can see, there's obstruction here on the left end here. There's a bicycle rack. Again, we need 4 feet 2 inch minimum clearance for the sidewalk. As well as on the right side here, there's an existing lamp post that has to be relocated as well. This is existing location toward on the east end of the project, where as you can see, there's lack of 4 feet 2 inch width here for the sidewalk for pedestrians or people wheelchair as well to get by. So what we're proposing at this location is a concrete block wall, if you will. This wall is actually at the same block within city of within this project limit, but about 100 feet down, I guess 100 feet upstream, or 100 feet east, or 100 feet west, 100 feet west of that location. So it's a similar detail that we're proposing at this location to provide the 4 feet 2 inch clear width for pedestrian access. This here is at I think between Church Street and Armstrong Woods Road. As you can see, there's double curbs here. This location, the cross slope, the sidewalk is greater than 2%, so it's not doesn't meet ADA standards. As well, we're meeting with a pedestrian office group in order to address this issue. So we're still studying it. Some of the options that we're looking into to improve this access for pedestrians as well as wheelchair disability. This is at one location that the existing driveway at one location. As you can see, there is a ramp at this driveway. This ramp here is very steep for those with wheelchairs, those with people with disabilities. This slope is greater than 2%. Obviously, people with wheelchair going along this route here, which is a steep slope, they may have very difficulty traversing this sidewalk here. That's why we need to build a sidewalk here as well as a ramp here in order to meet our standards. So next picture, I'll show you what standard driveway look like. This here is a standard driveway from another CalTrans project. As you can see, there's a ramp here for the cars to traverse from the street level to the sidewalk and the driveway. This part here is the sidewalk that we have to improve on, that you have to construct, the design as well. Design and then construct, of course. 4 feet 2 inch minimum clear width here, and as well 1.5% cross slope. So there's a street level here, the ramp for the cars. This clear width 4 feet 2 inches will be able to meet standards, to meet the requirement for accessibility for pedestrians as well as wheelchair people with disabilities. Again, this is a sample from another CalTrans project. In order to provide, I guess, safe access for those crossing the Route 116, we're providing pedestrian hybrid beacon system. As you can see here, there's a push button here on the lower right-hand corner there. Once the button is pressed, there will be flashing yellow lights going on to warn the motorist to prepare to stop. And then eventually the yellow light will turn off, go to red light. Red light will forward the signal the motorist to stop for the pedestrians to cross. As you can see, there's a sign here above here that says crosswalk stop on red. So that will be alert the motorist to stop when there's red lights here. And once the pedestrian that cross on the other side of the road, the signal will turn off itself. And of course, this is a bulb out at this location. So we're proposing the same thing on Route 116. We're putting a bulb out at Mill Street and Church Street with a pedestrian hybrid beacon system. Again, a bulb out is also called a curb extension. This is a picture, I guess, in plan view, what a curb extension of bulb out look like. Again, it will provide a shorter distance for pedestrians to cross Route 116. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to Amjad, the office chief for the permit office. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. If you can please bring up that picture.
Jason, could you bring up that slide that you had on just before it went off the screen? Can you share that, please?
The other one.
It's the one before this.
Okay, Stuart, this is Jason. I'll share. Are we talking about this slide?
No, go forward.
This is the last 2 or 3 slides.
There you
That's
go.
This one. Yeah.
Oh.
The one before. Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, should this appear again?
I'll get to it. Sorry, I expanded and it jumped.
Okay. Thank you again. The picture that you see is actually in front of businesses on Main Street. And recently, CalTrans received a complaint that the wheelchair-bound 88 persons were unable to get to the area. And this was brought to our attention, and that was the reason that we wanted to talk to the participants of this meeting to bring this issue so that we can address it and resolve the complaint. In the beginning of the pandemic, Governor issued an executive order for shelter in place with restrictions for businesses in terms of social distancing, masks, and other requirements. And soon after that, CalTrans received inquiries on how to accommodate businesses so that they can have either use the curb for pickups for the food delivery services, or have the seating outdoors where the social distancing can be observed with the masks on, since seating inside was not allowed. To address that concern, CalTrans communicated the inquiries with Federal Highway Administration, because all highways have federal participations and they are the overall steward of the state highways and interstates. So Federal Highway Administration agreed to a temporary non-transportation use of the state highways, which allowed having public seating outside of the sidewalks, given the sidewalks are wide enough, closing off the parking strips except for the ADA parking stalls, having seating in the parking stalls or on the curbs, but with a strict requirement of the federal ADA laws observance. As you can see from this picture and from the complaint that was filed, a person in a wheelchair or a person with a cane and visual disability would be unable to traverse the area that you're looking at. And in addition, the requirement for CalTrans was to issue a permit to a local agency allowing those seatings to take place. None of those two requirements have been met. The concern for the ADA needs to be addressed immediately. The seating arrangement need to be such that a person in a wheelchair has a 48 inches minimum clear path through the seating area or near the curb or near the building, however the seatings are placed, so that they can easily navigate through the seating area without any tripping hazard. And same is true for the visually impaired person with a cane to traverse that area. That's a concern number one. The concern number two is the non-compliance with the streets and highway codes for which CalTrans is the steward of the state highways. We understand that, yes, it will take time for a permit to be issued, seating arrangements to be placed, ADA compliance to be complied with, and then a process that we can guide the county to apply for a permit and then work with the local businesses to have the seating out there in compliance with the permit requirement. But in the meanwhile, we are requesting that you immediately address this concern of ADA compliance, because it's not only CalTrans requirement, it's a federal requirement that we are all in violation of. And meanwhile, we can work on issuing permit to the county and so that they can have the businesses place the seating or have parklets placed in the parking area and close off the parking area to have the seating for general use in front of businesses. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer it.
We do have questions in the Q&A. I haven't been able to look at them yet. But for all of our panelists, if you see something in the Q&A that you can type an answer to, feel free.
So if that concludes the presentation, then we can go ahead and start reading some of those questions and answers out loud and answering them in real time. Elise, have you been tracking the ones both inside the Q&A function and also on Facebook?
Yes, I was just unmuting for this purpose. I'll start reading the questions from the Q&A first. So we have a question from Dan Sampson. saying, thank you for opening this to the public. I'm hoping that the CalTrans investment can extend to Guernwood Park, where many of the residents of Guerneville live. The traffic on 116 from Old Cas to the east through Riverside Drive to the west consistently exceeds posted speed limit. Our neighborhoods in the area frequently encounter cars and commercial traffic that will not stop at the crosswalk near Lover's Lane. We've seen an uptick in accidents and near pedestrian injuries. It would be great if CalTrans could invest in traffic calming measures in this corridor. So CalTrans team, is there any possibility of extending some of this examination to beyond the spots now identified?
Unfortunately, this is Ahmad Rahimi again, the project manager. We will not be able to extend the project limits. We're bound to stick with the original scope of the project. And however, we can look into the concerns and see if there are any other means for us. And I'm sure there will be something we could do about some of those. We can look into those for some sort of resolution.
Thank you. I'll make sure that we capture these comments and
Thank you.
if need to be answered can go over to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, something I'd like to add, it's Jeff, and we are doing, maybe not in that area, but there are some traffic calming measures that we're taking. The curb ramps, the bulb outs that we're putting in. Can I share the screen real quick? Let me see if I got that. Well, I don't have it easily accessible, but we saw a picture of the bulb out. That's essentially putting a rounded end at the end of the sidewalks, where the two sidewalks meet. East and west meets north and south, and that extends the area where pedestrians can stand. But also another factor is that cars going around that have to make a wider turn, and that really slows them down. So those are nice features of the project. Also, with the bulb out, by it extending the area where pedestrians can stand before they cross, it also shortens the amount of time they spend in the crosswalk by several feet. And several feet is a lot when you're only going across the street. So these are some of the traffic. These are improvements that I think will make it nicer in downtown Guerneville.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, very helpful. We have a series of questions from Richard Scaff. I'm not sure if they're in order here, so I'm just going to take them as they come on my screen. Please provide details about which accessible pedestrian signals you will be, oops, it just moved, which you will be adding, and include the sound level, the finder tone and message will be sent. It seems to me that a lot of these are things for you to follow up on. So if you don't mind, I'll just read through them, all these comments from this one person, and you can decide which ones to answer now and which ones to answer in the future. Once work is completed, will CalTrans be enforcing its policies about the use of tables and chairs, product displays, and A-frame signs? Your photo shows the use of umbrellas over dining tables. Does your policy cover that use? Next one is, will accessible parking be added to the downtown portion of Highway 16? How many and where? He then says, wheelchair bound. Mr. Nasir, are you aware that the statement you made directly conflicts with how people with disabilities feel about being defined as wheelchair bound? And then
I apologize for that. What I was trying to simply make a point was that there are people in this room, in this meeting, who may not be familiar with the general term of the one that Mr. Scaff is referring to. I apologize. It was my oversight. I was just using a layman term so that we are all on the same page what I'm talking about.
Thank you. Richard also comments that that's his wife walking through the seated crowd, asking the seated restaurant customers to let her husband through. What is CalTrans policy about this? And then his last comment is, actually, when I made the request for the Guerneville project, I included the need to add traffic control systems to be added to the location west of downtown near Lover's Lane to protect pedestrians crossing Highway 116. I made the request to Lenka at District 4. So that's the series of Richard Scaff's questions. You can let us know which ones you want to address now and which you want to send further information on.
Please, I believe we did have one more that was upvoted, and I think it may have jumped out of your view. So I'll see it and I'll take it. And maybe
Was
you
that
didn't.
the, I see one that just popped up during modifications to the right of way. Is that the one, Jason?
The one.
During modifications to the right of way, what construction barricade system will you be using? What is the CalTrans policy with regard to the design of construction barricade? Will speak out signage be used where temporary paths of travel are created during demolition, construction of sidewalk curb ramps? Which model and type to inform blind pedestrians about the temporary change in their path of travel? And all these are available for all the panelists to see and the other participants to see in the Q&A as well. So if I read anything too fast, you can take a look at them.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be using either barricades or other means of protecting the folks that are passing by our construction site. I'm not certain what, but and then I'm not sure about the speak out signage. Those are things that we're going to look into as we go through additional details on the project. So we will take these and hopefully be able to respond later on. We haven't worked out all those details yet. I don't believe so. Stuart, do you know at this moment of any particular usage of devices or other features that will protect the passerbys?
Oh, definitely, we need to maintain access to our businesses, right? So definitely also we have to provide access as well to pedestrians also, right? So there may be instances we put some sort of temporary devices like some barriers along the also on the pavement, right? At the parking area. So if we're going to provide temporary access to pedestrians, maybe some of the parking spaces may have to be limited. Maybe it's give and take. I mean, we have to provide access to pedestrians, then we have to take away some maybe parking areas, parking spaces in front, in order to maintain access for pedestrians.
And certainly,
Sorry,
Oh.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've gotten a couple of questions about flooding, whether the curbs will be raised to prevent the water from running onto the sidewalks. And then someone else asked if we're going to be doing anything to change, to put swales in and I don't think we are, because we're mostly working on the sidewalks, but maybe Stuart or Ahmad can address that. This is an area that floods, and so people wanted to know if we're kind of limited, I guess. We can't have curbs we can't have a 4-inch curb in one place and then a 6-inch curb in another, just because, am I right? People are used to walking, putting their foot up 4 inches, and suddenly they go to another town at 6 inches, they trip. So simply put, we have standards, and that's part of the reason we're doing this job, is to bring things up to today's current standards, that you can get by a light post in the street, or you can step up onto the curb without having to, really exert yourself. That's really what's behind this project, making it easier for everyone to get around in Guerneville.
Well, if the curbs are raised, then it would definitely affect the sidewalk, right? If the sidewalk is raised, it'll affect the businesses. So there's not much we can do at the curbs, because if we raise a curb or lower the curb, that'll affect the sidewalk as well as affect the businesses. One thing we're doing is to provide access at 1.5%, 1.5% crosswalk at the sidewalk, right? So you will raise a curb, that may actually make the sidewalk even steeper. So.
Many of the other comments here are, we were talking about having a public comment period where people could give their ideas and their input from the gallery of from our public about thoughts about what they would like for beautification. So I'm going to take a look at the questions or the comments that are made here in the Q&A, and then we can open for public comment in general. Just like all of our other public meetings, will have public comment limited to 2 minutes. So
at least,
yes,
I think it would be helpful if I were to go on the screen and just take a drive down with Google Maps so people can see, refresh their memory of what downtown Guerneville looks like. Would that be helpful or not?
I think everyone here is probably pretty familiar with what downtown Guerneville looks like, so
All right.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay, we won't go. All right.
So I'm going to go through some of these public comments on the Q&A. So first is from Jill Templeton. I hope the attractive streetlights will be preserved. My understanding is if you have to move them, they will be moved, but it will still be the same light, or do we plan on changing the lights?
We're talking with the county about changing the lights. So there will be different lights if we get to that point. We need to have a cooperative agreement executed between CalTrans and the Sonoma County. And so we're not there yet, but we're already looking at some of the options that the county presented to CalTrans. And we're basically talking about replacing those light posts with new ones.
Great. Well, it's a good, this is going to be an ongoing iterative conversation. It's not the first.
Yes.
I mean, this is one of the first, but it's not the last one. So
Yes.
thanks for that comment, Jill, and we will be investigating that and going further into
They'll
it.
have the same sort of historic look. Of course, they're not going to be your ordinary looking light posts.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what we
Jane?
have so far, we got 3 different options, and we are looking into which one would best meet the CalTrans standards.
Okay, and that's actually news to me, because last I had heard, I thought we were going to be using the existing ones, and possibly there might be 1 or 2 that needed to be shifted. So maybe we can circle back and make sure that we have a community-based input on the design, because I feel like that's a really essential part of downtown. And I agree with the commenter who said that it's, I think, important. They're visually attractive and folks enjoy them, I think.
Mhm.
The next comment is from James Thomas. Can the sidewalks be expanded to accommodate seating on a permanent basis in the restaurant and bar corridor? We may not, as I said, this is now sort of public comment, the ideas and things that people would like to see. And we may not be able to answer these this moment. The idea is also for us to bring these up and for Johannes to hear them, for the CalTrans team to hear them, and for us to then, figure out how if this is possible. I know that we all know that on Main Street, we've really enjoyed having a lot of these tables and chairs outside. And it'll be a question as to whether or not we find there's room in the design. But do you have any thoughts on that at this moment, or is that a tabled question?
I can answer that.
Mhm.
Let me go ahead and answer it. please keep in mind the public seating on a state highway is for a temporary period. The policy is still in effect. We are still going through the remnants of the pandemic. It's still impacting everybody. We are not letting that policy expire. The seating will be there as long as it's required for the economic recovery and other uses, so that we are fully aware of that. It's our job to accommodate the non-transportation use when it's properly justified. In the long term, however, this cannot go on indefinitely. At some point, the policy will be removed, and it will expire at some time. What we do have in mind is that if the local agency responsible for that area is willing to have the sidewalk relinquished to the local agency, we'll be more than happy to work with you. That way, you can enforce your own policies as long as you wish, and have the ownership of the sidewalk on long-term use basis and permanent basis. So it's up to the local agency to have that option available, but we are willing to work with you if that's something that you are contemplating, having the sidewalk relinquished to the local agency instead.
Thank you. That's so helpful. Robin asks, is there an option for sideways parking on Main Street to allow for more parking?
Not sure what sideways parking is. Are you
I
talking
guess,
about?
yeah, so it
the
won't
angle
be
parking?
parallel to the curb. I guess that's what they mean. So it'll be more like skewed towards the curb or slanted parking.
Planted, yeah, because they already have they're already parallel parked, right?
Yeah, well, I guess they have tandem parking there. So, there's only one row of cars parallel with the sidewalk. So, we have to look into the geometrics of the street there or our highway there. And, but I'm not sure if that would be a part of this project. I don't think it could be included in this project. It's going to require major restriping of everything, and potential restriping of the center line and all that. So it's not currently part of the scope of the project, and I don't see that being added at this point. But again, these are all, great ideas. At least on the surface, we can always look into those in the future.
An additional question, two other questions from the same person, from Robin. Is it possible for the trash cans along that CalTrans section of Main Street to be dumped and cleaned on a regular basis? That's not so much about the design. Perhaps you can direct us to the right person to ask about about the trash cans issue.
We must have an agreement, maintenance agreement. I can't imagine that we would go out there. Can you guys? I mean, Ahmad, Amjad, you probably know better than us. We probably have agreements with the local agencies, so we don't have to go out and empty trash cans.
That is correct. So the maintenance agreement that may include the trash receptacles, upkeep of the sidewalks, any lighting, that may be in a agreement with the local agency, and that's why it's delegated to the locals. And there is a cost sharing that's associated with that maintenance agreement.
And the local agency would be the county, because Guerneville is, I don't know what the word is, not incorporated, but it's
Unincorporated.
unincorporated. There you go.
It is
So,
within the county jurisdiction, correct?
Yeah, it's under the
Although I
county's
kind of think
jurisdiction.
that more as anti-incorporated, sometimes it feels like that in West County, but
Yeah,
Right.
we do actually have and Robin, we're going to be talking about this at the next River Mac meeting. We do have some plans and some funding and some projects going in terms of the trash cans. I just thought it was worthwhile to still ask it. She also asked, where does Main Street stop and 116 begin? I think they're concurrent all the way along, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, I think Old River Road on the west side is where Main Street begins. Am I correct?
Yes, I can pull it up on the screen and share with everybody.
Thank
That's
you.
my understanding. It's part of the Highway 116, Main Street, and the street to the left and to the right, they all are part of Highway 116.
And speaking of just to jump in of 116, I did want to clarify something that Jeff had mentioned in the Q&A, which is that when it comes to when I was describing paving downtown, I was talking about everything but 116. So First Street, Third Street, Church.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
Okay.
but really would love to see CalTrans pave 116 and maybe even all the way to Forestville and to Sebastopol and yeah, further down.
Nick asked, can the crossing signals use flashing lights inset into the roadway as is done in Sebastopol rather than those large visually intrusive overhead signal arms?
No, those are the most positive way of stopping traffic. So they act just like a regular traffic signal. So that's our most preferred method of installing any sort of light or signals or warning devices for drivers for vehicular traffic. So yeah, pedestrian overhead lights are what we prefer to use.
Great. Jill Templeton comments that Main Street had diagonal parking in the old days. It would be good to restore some of the historic feeling of the town, provide more parking, and calm the speed of traffic through town.
Again, we can look into that.
That'd be a major revision.
We have a couple additional comments just repeating about the picture that you showed about the access, and I'm going to say to both Dave and Steve that we've asked and answered that one. And we also, Jeff, you addressed the question of swales. I had that on my list as well of things to look at in terms of that. So we'll continue that conversation. The California Mermaid, Vera, is asking, can the park and ride be turned into a rest stop with bathrooms? And I believe that that's the county property and not CalTrans.
Yes,
Is that
okay.
correct? The park and ride right after this project?
That's correct, Elise.
Yeah. The Russian River Chamber, Marina asks, it sounds like construction will be taking place during the busy summer season. This will not be helpful to our local businesses that rely on tourism revenue. What are your plans to address the construction issues during the summer season?
Yeah, I was wondering if the locals are receptive to doing work at night. Do we have a lot of residential homes in that segment of the highway? I'm sorry about my own ignorance, not knowing, just recently took over Sonoma County projects, so I'm not as familiar. But we could probably work at night if that's okay.
It's an interesting point. We probably need to survey the residents in that area. And Johannes, just as another thought, I'm not the roads person, so, but, we could also probably divert over to First Street or something, couldn't we? Or?
Yes, we could. Yes, we could.
Yeah.
And I would also mention that we have done a similar project in Sebastopol, and we finished that last summer.
Mhm.
So we have the advantage of going in and knowing how to deal with these problems in a town like Guerneville, which is somewhat similar, where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, a lot of people parking and seeking destinations on Main Street. We did work at night most of the time there.
Mhm.
And then it didn't become much of a problem. So, but it's something to be discussed. If we work during the day, there's a lot of jackhammering of the curb ramps. And even when we're doing that sort of work, and I just know because I talk to people in Sebastopol so much,
Mhm.
the curb ramp might be in that condition for a couple of days. But you could still get around because we only do 1 or 2 at each location per day. But you know, a business will be affected a little bit by if we're working on that curb ramp in front of their business. But it usually only takes a couple of days to complete one. So that's something that will be in effect whether we're working at night or not. We can't just work overnight and complete a curb ramp. But we try and work at night to get a lot of the so that we are not jackhammering during the day.
Right.
I was just looking over the Google map,
Mhm.
and looks like we don't have, we have very few, from what I can see, we have very few homes in that stretch of the highway or the street there, River Road. So we could probably work during the nighttime, and that would eliminate some of the disturbance to the businesses. And that's, of course, on the top of our list of concerns and consideration. So
Right.
we'll be looking into that with, in greater detail and
the
plan accordingly.
Yeah. And the other thing, I don't want to alarm people. When I say jackhammering at night, I mean, we're not going to start at 3 a.m. We'll try and work at a time where the businesses are shut in the evening, sometime like that. It's hard to thread the needle and make everyone happy, but we're also sensitive to people who live nearby. And so we usually try and pick a time to work where we affect the fewest people.
Yeah, we'll do some community outreach on that, because I can't imagine the businesses that start serving dinner at 5 o'clock to like having jackhammering going on.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting balancing act on that. I'm going to check with Jason now, and we do have some additional questions from Jill and Richard, but I hope that both of you understand that what we want to try to do is to get everyone's first questions answered before we get to the 5th and 6th questions of one particular person or 2 particular people. So we'll try to get back to you. But Jason, do we have questions coming in on Facebook that we need to look at, or hands raised?
We have a couple of hands raised, and we do have a couple of questions on Facebook, and I'll just read those off for the record really quickly. Jennifer Wirtz, is the state going to start taking responsibility for emptying the trash cans on Highway 116 area, downtown area? Also, we need a crosswalk with lights you can activate, at least at Main Church. Should be all the other crosswalks in town, but that one is really dangerous and people have been hit there. Nick Schiebel commented, quit gentrifying Guerneville and make it appeal to techie upstairs. Oh, wow, we just had a bunch more comments come in on Facebook. Charles says, hard to make everyone understand the roadblocks. Otto Willis says, bioswales, please, to address storm drain runoff. Otto again, can we get sidewalk to Dawn Ranch and Fern Grove Cottages? And Otto again, repaint the parking spot lines. And that's going to do it for our Facebook comments. Now we will do our 2-minute public comments. Richard, you have your hand raised. You can unmute yourself and start your comment. Richard?
Well, yeah, I'm thank you very much. My name is Richard Scaff. I'm the Executive Director of Designing Accessible Communities. I was also the one that requested this project when I was a member of the first and only and no longer CalTrans Disability Access Advisory Committee that was created after the lawsuit that CalTrans settled because of a lack of a major lack of compliance with state and federal access requirements. I'm a little concerned that I'm asking the list of questions I listed, and thank you for asking them, by the way, Ms. Whelan. I'm concerned that I've been for months asking Lenka, is Lenka no longer with District 4?
No, Lenka is
Yes,
with
yes.
District 4.
I've been asking, and I was promised by Lenka that I would get plans of the project so I could review them and determine whether I had questions and concerns. I have yet to receive them, even though I was promised I'd receive them. These are design and policy issues that should have been in all of that time since I first put this request in, should have been answered. I shouldn't be tonight, asking those questions. There should have been an exact answer to every single one. And I'm now very concerned. Oops. I'm on a timer, I see. I'm now very concerned that I'm having to ask these now and hope that somebody may answer them before the project demo starts and then construction goes into process. So I'd like to just hear if I'm going to be able to have input. Is CalTrans going to be listening to these issues and resolving them? Thank you.
We'll certainly try to share the work that we're trying to get done over there with you somehow. You know, the plans, normally we don't share them until we reach a certain degree of completion, because they're constantly in the state of flux. So, and we're not at that point yet. We're still developing a lot of the details and working out a lot of the, you may call design restrictions and issues. So that's where we are. And we'll be glad to work with you later on. And we'll get a list of all the concerns that you had here, including the ones that you emailed to us. And we'll look into those and, of course, try to do our best to resolve those. As long as it's within our policy to work, so you'll be happy. You know, like Jeff mentioned, it's not possible to resolve everything to on a project to everyone's satisfaction, but we sure will try as much as we can, as long as it's within our design standards and there's a possibility to resolve those for you or others.
Great, thank you so much.
Ed, we have one more hand raised from Vera. Vera, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi.
I was wanting to talk about the park and ride and also Fife Creek, but it doesn't seem like the time to do so. But thank you for reading my question, Elise. I love you. And power on, you guys. Just keep on going. Hopefully you can answer Otto's questions too. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Vera.
Thank you. Are those all the hands in the Facebook, Jason?
That's all the hands in the Facebook, Elise.
All right, getting back to the ones that were more from people who had already spoken. Jill Templeton also asks, is there any consideration being made for a bicycle lane through this section? It seems that the bulb outs will force bicycles to compete with autos.
No, we're not including any bicycle lanes as part of this project. This is strictly a pedestrian facility improvement. So,
Will the crosswalks have a distinct texture or color similar to the ones in Sebastopol that make them visually apparent to drivers?
yes, they will. And we'll be working with the county on the color, on choosing the color. We do have a limited number of colors that we use, that we are allowed to use. So,
Great. And public comment asking for maintenance and addition of trees on the street.
I don't believe we are planning to add more trees on the street. Stuart, are you aware of any trees that we may be adding on? We may be doing some landscaping work, but
Yeah, we're
not sure.
We have budgets for erosion control work for the project. I think I mentioned to one of the questions, we're potentially possibly removing 2 trees because the 2 trees do not provide obstructions. They basically do not provide the 4 feet 2 inch clear width that we need. But we're still studying, trying to save those 2 trees.
I mean, Stuart, isn't the answer generally about the trees is that we're having a hard time just now with the widths of the sidewalks, and that's preventing us from putting in more trees.
Mhm.
I mean, we can't, we're having to widen around the light posts and other things. I don't know if we could fit trees in. Isn't that about right?
That was a good response, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need to maintain 4 feet 2 inch width for clear width for pedestrians as well as disability persons. So there's one, yeah.
Here's a unique and interesting question. Will any of these improvements restrict the abilities of helicopters to land on Main Street as they did in the most recent flooding?
No. What? You want to take that, Ahmad?
Now, if you've landed helicopters there before, you probably should be able to do the same thing. We're not putting in new, let's say, power lines or anything else across the street. And yeah, we will probably be adding a couple of poles, large poles for those pedestrian hybrid beacons.
Mhm.
So those will be there. So the helicopters could not land in those areas probably. So, potentially, yeah, we'll be adding more restrictions to that. But it's a fairly large stretch. So they should be able to land elsewhere.
Okay. I've heard a concern from someone who isn't here tonight, and I'm just remembering this and not seeing it covered, which is, and Linda, you probably remember Deborah Johnson talking about the added crosswalk down and whether or not it is something that is called by any pedestrian going by, which we were worried would really slow down the traffic, or having some other mechanism to have that as a lighted crosswalk. Is that accurate, Linda?
It is, and actually Johannes's predecessor at TPW also expressed reservations when we first met on this project, I think 5 years ago. And so that was definitely a concern of basically, there's concern that if pedestrians are able to trigger that essentially it would always be triggered in the summer. And so then you get a backup of sort of, traffic coming into town. And so just making sure that there are times when vehicles can move through that when it wouldn't be activated by people. So obviously we want to get pedestrians across the road safely, but we don't want it to always be just a one-way pedestrian crossing that vehicles then don't get a chance to go, if that makes sense. So is there anything that you all could tell us about that? Because I have heard that concern a few times in the community, because the traffic in the summer backs up I don't know, halfway to Guerneville, I mean, Forestville, in sometimes.
So are we talking about mid-block crosswalks? Is that what you're
Yeah.
referring to?
Wouldn't
So
we
some crosswalks in the middle of the blocks between the existing intersections. Is that what we were talking about? I'm not really
the
sure.
Hawk system? You're
The
talking
Hawk
about the Hawk
system.
systems.
Yeah,
The
the
overhead,
ones that
yes.
red light.
Mhm. Yeah, they have to be synchronized with the rest of the signal system. So that way we won't have a traffic congestion situation more than what we already have. So yeah, they'll be synchronized with the rest of the signal system.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's good
So
to
that
hear.
way you won't have cars rushing on towards that, towards the crosswalks when the crosswalks are actually blocked to cars.
Mhm.
Yes.
So would it only activate then when it's sort of in that window where it's supposed to activate? Is that how it would work?
Yeah, there has to be some sort of coordination. It's not going to be a sudden turning of the light red for vehicular traffic. So there may be a little bit of wait time
Okay,
to
great.
be
Thank you for-
synchronized with the intersections, the signals at the intersections.
Yeah, I mean, on the signals we have now, just the regular ones, I mean, this is the first time I've heard that question too, and it's a good one. You press the button and you still have to wait. And I think it's because it's synchronizing, or there's a certain time period that you have to wait before you get the signal to go across. Otherwise, what would happen would be, it would be haphazard or overloaded. Like, am I right? Like during the summer in Guerneville, right? You'd always have it. There has to be times when it's don't walk to manage traffic, and that's done through the synchronization, right? Same way with traffic signals. Am I right?
Yeah, you cannot allow the pedestrians into the intersection at any time. Usually you have to go through certain phases before it's their turn. It's just like every other leg of traffic. So there is a place, there is a certain phase for pedestrians to go through each leg of the intersection.
Great, thank you. So asking again, something that I've heard that hasn't come up in the chat. What should we be asking that we don't know? I mean, when you've done these ADA projects in other places and other areas have done beautification things, say in Sebastopol along 116 or any other areas, have there been parts of the project that we should be looking at in terms of, a couple other people have brought up questions of native plants or trees or beautification. Are there things that we should be considering that, because we don't have as much experience as you guys do about these beautification projects and what the possibilities are? Are there possibilities of, things that we could add that would really add to downtown?
Now, as Stuart mentioned, we do have a budget for landscaping work, and and anything in addition to that would have to probably be worked out with the county again. Same as the light posts.
Yes,
So,
and we're happy
yes,
to.
so we can probably, once we get to that point, and I think we should probably start working on that too, as we continue to develop the project towards the completion of the plans, to talk about those features and the possible cost and the scope of all of that. So those are something that we probably need to be sitting down with the county and look into.
Yeah, that's certainly something I know that we've talked about many times that we would be happy to look into, because we think this is an important project. Can you let us know the timing in terms of when the door is open for these conversations, and what the timing is of next steps for everybody to understand?
Yeah, I believe we can start these conversations now. I think this is the right time.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think we should start now. And so we have time to put together a cooperative agreement if that's the case. And most likely we will have to have a cooperative agreement for the light posts.
Mhm.
And there are other features that are desired by the local agencies or others. This is the right time to talk about it, bring it up. So we could hopefully incorporate all of that into one single agreement. We don't have to go back and forth. The agreements, they take a long time sometime, and they do take a lot of effort. So we
Yes,
want to
we've been
make sure.
good. We've been talking as well with,
Yes.
we had a question on another project because PG&E was in the midst of digging up to underground some lines, and we were talking about the importance of no dig, of just dig once policies. And is there anything we should be looking into in terms of undergrounding PG&E lines at the same time, or making sure we have fiber or broadband access put in, or is there any sort of infrastructure that would be a good idea to partner at this point in order to do just a dig once program?
That would be a pretty major task, because those lines probably have to be underground in the sidewalks, and then I'm sure sidewalks are already full of other facilities. So that would take a lot of effort. That takes a lot of planning and work, and also expense. So wouldn't be feasible to be included in this project.
All right. Well, it never hurts to ask.
Well, of course, we're going to, as a part of our project, we're going to have some of that anyway. Like if we're going to relocate some of the lights or change the lights, the post lamps, all of that, we're going to have to do some work in there already. And, and I think one reason that we're looking more into, and meaning both CalTrans and the county, looking into newer lights, is to be able to have all the standards all satisfied, because those lights probably have a lot of outdated, connections, the conduit work, and everything else. So, so everything you touch, you got to bring up to standards, and sometimes it does become very cumbersome. It becomes a big burden on the project that could derail the main purpose.
Okay.
So.
Johannes, you have been listening very helpfully. Do you have any questions or comments or additions you'd like to make at this point?
Thank you, Elise, and thank you for CalTrans for bringing this update to the community and to the county. Like Supervisor Hopkins, this is some of this information is the first time I hear. So I look forward to working with CalTrans to partner to get a project that would be beneficial to the community.
Yes, and again, I think we are at the point where we should start those conversations, so you can clarify, all the potential misunderstandings, and then look forward to putting together the rest of the project according to what's best for everybody, all the stakeholders.
Great. Jason, do we have any other questions or things that are hiding that I haven't seen, or anything on Facebook?
Nothing additional.
Any other comments? Linda, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much to CalTrans for coming to the meeting tonight, and for Senator Mcguire's leadership role on this, and Johannes for your partnership with the county, between county and CalTrans as well. And I think this is just really important to all get on the same page and make sure that we're rowing in the same direction. So I hope that we can have more of these meetings. And also, just my last question for CalTrans would be, if residents or downtown business owners have additional questions, want to see certain design elements, what's the best way for them to bring that information forward or to try to get information, more information about the project?
I think the best is to contact Jeff. He's our public information officer, so he'll probably be, you know, the person that would take all the questions and then route it to myself, and we will then route it to other team members that are in charge of handling those questions or items that are in those questions, and we'll go from there.
I'm putting my email in the chat.
Great. Wonderful. And we can definitely share that with our meeting participants as well. So thank you all so much. I'm looking forward to getting some improvements in downtown Guerneville and to continuing the conversation with the community, particularly when it comes to those fun design elements. You know, the bulb outs, there are some beautiful examples of benches or, you know, flower, you know, landscaping, that kind of thing that can be put in to really improve and enhance the town. But of course, whenever we have those kinds of things, there are also ongoing costs. And so I know that CalTrans would want a commitment in terms of how we're going to fund, say, the maintenance for the landscaping going forward. So thank you all so much and looking forward to continuing the conversation. Take care and have a good night.
Before you hang up, I just have one more comment. And the comment is that we need to immediately address the ADA non-compliance issue. Who would be our contact on your side who can work with us with our maintenance forces so that we can have the businesses at least provide ADA accessible path through those seatings that we showed. And number two, that the encroachment by itself is unauthorized, and who will be the person on your side will work with us to obtain a permit for the seating areas.
Supervisor Hopkins, I can take that one if you want.
Great, thank you.
Amjad, this is Johannes. Your contact would be Tennis Wick with PRMD, and Tennis would probably work with me on that permit, but Tennis is the right-of-way permit director agency in the county. So I can send you the info. I can send it to Jeff, and we can start that way.
Okay, but the other, the permit part is one aspect of it, but we need to address this ADA compliance. How do we work to do that so that the businesses can provide minimum of 48 inches clear path so that we don't get another complaint?
Amjad, I have already sent that message to the business that you showed, and and I'm happy to go down Main Street and reiterate that requirement for you.
Okay, thank you. And please let us know the long-term solution if you're interested in. When you establish a contact with us, let us know what your thoughts are for the relinquishments of the sidewalk, and what do you think to have those seating there permanently in case the policy expires and then we are unable to have those seats out there. That's going to make businesses very unhappy.
Well, we're gonna work directly with the county staff to work out some of these details. You know, probably, but this would be a part of our continued contact and conversations on the project, and you know, and everything else. So. So we look forward to working with the county staff, you know, more closely and more continuously from now on, so we can work on these items.
I do want to be clear though, and to echo what Johanna said, that the appropriate contact point would be Permit Sonoma for code enforcement concerns. While we are county staff, we are not county staff generally, right? We are just the 5th district and really focusing on constituent you know, case management and advocating on behalf of our residents in West County. So we do have other departments for that, and definitely can put you in touch with Tennis.
Thank you so much.
We'll look into our maintenance agreements and then figure out some of these questions that came up today about who is responsible for what, and then we'll work with you closely to address any issues.
Great, wonderful. Look forward to it. Problem solving together. Thank you all so much. Any last final for the good of the order before we call it a night? All right, seeing none. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stick it out to the bitter end, all of our residents in Guerneville. So have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
to see all of
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.